Okay, we're up and live. This is Friday before spring break. This is week 8 or 7. I'm not sure. Who cares? Who's keeping track? It's whatever week it is. So today, though, we're going to take a look at, what is it? Unit 7, which is Chapter 5 on savings. Are there any questions about anything? Price of gas, embargo on steel. We won't talk about that today. Okay, so what we'll do today is we'll take a look at the savings. I will show you, I've got a financial calculator in MAT141. I'll show you a little bit how to use it, but for a large part, the class presentation, maybe about 30 minutes or so, will be primarily an overview of how it works, how finances work. When you get into the homework, a lot of it is going to be using the app, online app, or the TI-84 calculator. You can use they have a finance program in it, or financial calculator. It's going to be using financial calculator to do calculations to get a feel for how interest rate, the amount that you save, the timings, how that all affects the end result. Okay. So let's go ahead and we are recording. We're broadcasting to the world. Hope everyone out there is having a good day. And so here's Chapter 5. There's the textbook. It has a lot of the formulas and such. The way I teach it, I don't use the formulas. I will show you the formulas, and we'll take a look at the formulas to figure out how the math works. But we will actually use a application to do all the problems instead of algebra, because that's how the professionals do it. Believe me, I used to be in the field. I was in financial planning. I had a degree in mathematics. I would use mathematics, but my boss, who didn't even have he had a high school diploma. He was a used car salesman, great used car salesman, but he was also, he could calculate this stuff in his head because he had a little financial calculator. He was sharp as could be with numbers. I used the formulas, and it took me 3 or 4 times as long to get the answers, and I didn't have a good feel until I started using his way of doing things, and then I also got good at the numbers as well. So the textbook's there. There are some problems I've worked through. I probably will remake some of these videos showing the calculator. Basically on the screen, it's got the placements for what you plug into the calculator, and then you'll just see basically you click a button and it will calculate what you need. This is our class presentation. I'll open it up in a minute. Before I do that, I'm going to TVM compound interest calculator. I'm going to open this up because we may be using it. And so when you open it up, it's an online application. We're going to use it. What I suggest is doing view in a window, because when you click on that, let's see what happens. Actually, it gave me a window, but it's over on my other monitor, so let me drag it over. It opens it up like this. So we now have a little calculator window that we can use for doing financial calculating. So this whole unit, you're just really learning to read a problem, put all the numbers in the right place, and there'll be one thing that isn't given to you, and that's what we're going to solve on. So you put all the numbers in, and the one that you need to solve on, you just click on it. And you get the algebra would be, we could do that with algebra too, but that's a lot of work. And this one, you just put the numbers in. As long as you get them in the right place, click on the right key, you'll always get the right answer. So you'll get the hang of that down pretty good. Class presentation, so let me open this up. It's a little PowerPoint. Again, remember you have access to all of these because I'm pulling this up directly from Canvas. No, MAT141. We got both of them, but these are in MAT141. Whatever. Still wants me to give it a password that I don't have, so we'll just come here. So this first part, I'm going to go through it kind of quickly. This is just what you do to manage your money. So some of this is general How do you manage money? And let's go for slideshow. And set up the slideshow. I think everything's working just fine. So what we're going to talk about first is taking control of your finances, some of the things, how money works, and then this time we're going to look at the power of compounding, how compound interest works, and focus a lot on the savings plans and investments. The next unit, Unit 6, so when we come back from spring break, will be loan payments and so forth. So don't come back next week. There won't be a live stream. There might be some videos. If I get bored, I might contact you that way. But there's no class next week, so take a nice break, and we'll go from there. Okay? So, taking control of your finances. So what are finances? What do you need to have finances? A job, or some income. I'd like to get income without a job, but that hasn't worked so far. But yeah, you could have somebody giving you, well, actually, I guess my dad used to give me $5 a week for allowance. That was great. And back in that day, $5 actually lasted all week. I guess because I was a kid, right? So, again, we have bank balances. Things are changing. We don't, this one's actually an older PowerPoint, so we might have, anybody still write paper checks? No, we use plastic all over the place, right? Or we pay bills online. But the same thing is true as if you go to pay something, you want to make sure you've got money to cover it, because they still charge you fees if there's no money to pay it. It gets bounced. Know what you spend. So that's another thing, is sometimes especially with plastic, you just go in and you keep spending, and then when do you stop? When they say you've reached your limit or there's no more money. That's not a good way to do it. You should know what you're spending and have some left over. Don't buy on impulse. And again, sometimes, just because they're having a sale, be careful. Make sure it's planned. And we're going to talk about the planning process, and then making a budget, not overspending. So what is a budget? There's 4 steps to it. What is a budget used for?
Just a plan of how much you can spend.
Very good. I had a friend back in high school, just after high school, when he got out on his own, he would have about 5 or 6 different envelopes. He'd cash his check in, get cash. He'd put whatever his budget for each of the items were in an envelope, and the envelope was empty. He was done spending money. So if the food envelope was empty, he'd have to wait till the next paycheck to get it. It worked. But, so what you want to do is you want to list all your income. One of the things sometimes we miss is that there's some income we might get, especially as students, you might get it once or twice a year, such as your financial aid. That's supposed to last you maybe 3 or 4 months. So you have to spread that. You can't just say, okay, I've got $1,000 now and I can spend it all. And that money's supposed to last 3 months, 4 months, whatever it lasts. So you prorate those kind of things. If your Aunt Sally gives you a nice Christmas bonus, again, budget that throughout the year. So what do you have as income? The other thing you need to list is what are all your expenses, your ongoing payments. Maybe you have a credit card, maybe you have some loans, rent, utilities, all those things that come on a regular basis. List those down as well. And also, things like car payments or car registration, that might only come once a year, but you want to divide that by 12 so that it's in the budget. Subtract the total expenses from the total income. And what is that called? Cash flow. And if it's positive, is that good or bad? It's good. If it's negative, that's when it's bad. That means you don't have enough money to cover everything, and there's wouldn't be a problem. So then you make your adjustments as needed and go through the process. And then again, you try to live according to that budget, whatever that is. Okay, so that's, oops, let's go back. What was the last one? So understand how savings works. That's what we're going to work on today is the time value of money. We will talk about the basic mathematics of loans next week after spring break, the week after spring break. Taxes is important to understand because sometimes certain things you get a tax break or tax deduction. So certain expenses like currently if you buy a house and you're paying a loan on it, the interest from that loan is deductible on your taxes. So knowing those kind of things help you make your decisions. And then also understanding how the federal budget works, sometimes that can help you, especially as a student. If they have Pell Grants in there, that might be nice. That helps pay for your school. If they take it out of the federal budget, then it makes it harder. So sometimes the federal budget has an effect on our personal expenses and finances. This is a book. I still have it in Canvas. I found a PDF of it. It's kind of a good read because it's a story that was written like in the 1920s. And I'll just give you a basic overview, and then you're welcome to download it and read it as you like or not. I think I've got it in two different segments, one as a short version and then the full version. But the story is this guy comes out of the desert working in Babylon, which was, does anyone know where Babylon is or was? I guess it's not a city now, but what part of the world is Babylon? No ideas. It's just out, it's in Iraq, modern day Iraq, not far from Baghdad. So, and it used to be the capital of the world empire of Babylon. And anyway, it was a very wealthy, prosperous city. The story goes, this wealthiest guy came in and he had basically started from nothing and became the wealthiest man in Babylon. And then he later goes on to teach others how to do it, how he became rich. And he came up with a formula. And he said, basically, you've got your income. And your income is what you got. And so if you take all your income, which is 100%, he says most people will go and spend that. And then next month they got to make some more money and go. But he says before you go spending this, he says it's okay to spend it, but you've got to limit what you spend. For your daily living expenses, food, housing, and all that kind of stuff. You have an idea of what he thought should be spent on living expenses. How much? 25%. Actually, he said you gotta live a quality life, so you should, whatever you're making, you should learn to live on 70% of what you make. So that's your date, your clothing, whatever, your pay for your kids' school, whatever you need, your life should pretty much fall within 70% of what you're making. And this is take home, after tax. So how much does that leave? If we spend 70%, what do we have left? 30%. And he broke that 30% into two things. One is debt service, so paying back your debt. And the other thing was personal savings. How do you think he broke that up? Could be 15 and 15. He says, though, and we're going to see this, that because debt is interest you have to pay to somebody else, and it's usually higher. He says, let's get that debt paid off faster. So we'll do a 20% to the debt and 10% to savings. Once the debt does get paid off, then move it all into savings is the goal. 20%, try to keep your debts at whatever you need to do. Live off of 70%, pay back 20%, 10% goes into savings. And I'm going to show you a little example of two of my favorite students that I worked with years ago. They got back with me, and they showed me what they've been doing. And I'm going to show you how powerful this 10% savings has worked for them. And then you can see if you want to do that same thing. But the basic thing is the mathematics will work out is if you save that 10%, in about 30 years' time, you will have saved enough money that has grown. We'll see it has to get some interest itself, but you'll have enough to replace the 70% up here that you're spending. At least that. Sometimes you'll have enough to get the 100% if you've invested well. But you'll certainly have the 70% done. And so when you retire, you don't really need to save anymore. So if you've got, and you have your debts paid off, so if you've got the money you need to live off of, what can you stop doing? You could stop working for somebody else because now your money is working for you. So that was the goal, is that's where what retirement is, wealth is. You get to decide what you do with your days. You could volunteer at a school or something, or whatever you want, whatever turns you on. You could run your own business, or maybe you do run your own business to do this anyway. But within 30 years, he says this will work for everybody. Everybody will feel wealthy because they can live the luxury life of not having to work to make money, but using their time in the way they feel is the best use of their time. It could be with their religious organization or whatever you spend your time with. You have now more time to do that. By that time, maybe you have grandkids, whatever it is. But this little formula works, and it works for everybody. It worked back then. It will work now. And the story kind of takes you through some pitfalls of what happens with investing and stuff. And it's, again, a kind of a nice read. It was a financial planner back in the 20s that wrote it, so it is a made-up story, but it gives you some basic financial concepts and ideas. So again, today's a lot of, it doesn't seem like we got into the math part yet, and we sort of haven't, but here we go, not too far away. Okay, so now we start getting into the math part. In some of the homework problems, you'll be doing something called simple interest. And I forgot, I think in Math AS, I didn't see it. There should also be a simple interest calculator, because there's two kinds. There's compound interest, where you're getting interest on top of your interest and reinvesting the interest. That's what that first calculator that I pulled up is good for. But there's also simple interest, which is a simpler calculation. But simple interest occurs when you get interest and then you do not reinvest the interest. Okay, some life insurance is like this. They pay a dividend, and if you take that dividend and go spend it, you just still have your investment. But it would be something that's called simple interest. Okay, what I want you to focus on, or to see here, is that simple interest involves, how do we calculate simple interest or interest? We take the principal, which is what we deposit, our investment, starting amount. We multiply it by an interest rate. Okay, so they give an example, 5% is 0.05. And then we multiply it by the number of years, or the time involved, which usually is going to be years, annual. So it's multiply, multiply, multiply. Okay. And again, hopefully we get our investment back. So it's what we started with, our deposit, plus the interest will give us the cumulative value after so many years. And so again, you'll see this sort of simple interest formula. But again, I've also got a calculator where you put it in and you don't have to worry so much about the algebra. So we'll take a look at a few of those. But watch for questions. If they say simple interest, we have to do the problem with this particular formula or with the simple interest calculator. Okay? Don't use the compound calculator for simple interest. So look for that in the problem. Sometimes I miss it myself and I start doing all these calculations and they come back wrong. And then I take a closer look. Oh, that was simple interest and I was using compound interest. So we'll get an understanding of what the two mean, the difference between the two. Oops. So now we're going to talk about compound interest. Okay, here's the formula. You'd see a similar formula in the book. And so this, what I'm going to do is spend a little time, because we're not going to use the formula itself, But we do use each of these things. We'll see in the calculator they have something called FV, which is the future value. Oftentimes that's what we're looking for. What will we have in the future if we invest so much money now at a certain interest rate and all this kind of stuff. Okay. Present value is what we have today, or what the starting principle was. Okay, we see that is right here. It's going to get multiplied by whatever happens here. Okay, so still a multiplication problem. It's got an interest rate, and again in the calculator we would just plug that in. Here we put it in as a decimal, and we're going to see we divide it by n, and I'll explain what that is, because n is the number of compounding periods per year. So if I am compounding monthly, what would be the value of n? Is that 12? Okay, because there's 12 months in a year. If I did it daily, day 365. So there'll be some examples where you'll do that. And again, it depends. If you use the TI calculator, their financial planning part, there is a place to put this number in. If we use this calculator over here that I pulled up, we actually just, let me just show you, put it on top. Notice there's the FV, the PV, there's a payment. We haven't talked about a payment yet. There's the rate, and there's periods. But instead of putting in a value for n, you click on this list and you can do monthly, what are the choices? Monthly, daily, oops, of course it can. Quarterly, semi-annually, monthly, weekly, and daily. That's what it's, okay, so we've got those choices. Okay, and then years, which could be part of a year. But the thing I want to focus on here is we take our principal, we multiply. What are we doing with time mathematically? What do we call this up here? It's an exponent. So what's the difference between taking an exponent and multiplying? I take 3 times 4, what do I get? 12. But if I take 3 raised to the 4th power, 3 times 3 times 3 times 3, 3 times 3 is 9, the other 3 times 3 is 9, 9 times 9 is 81. So you could do that out, but yes, 3 to the 4th actually is 81. Which one's bigger? Exponents or multiplication? Exponent is extremely much bigger. Multiplication, if you remember, that's simple interest. So if we did this for 4 years, simple interest, we just multiply by 4, we would have got $12 back. If we do it compounding, that's an exponential. Look how much money we would have got back. So you're going to see compound. If you're going to invest, you want compound interest. And what is up in the exponent? What component of the investment? Number of years. And the compounding periods, yes. So years and how often you compound. So the more often you compound, the better. The more time you have, the better. So that's what the equation shows us, is that time is like one of the biggest factors in investment. Don't try to get rich quick. It's hard to do. It's very risky. But that's why the richest guy in Babylon said, if you invest 10% over 30 years, you will get rich slowly, almost guaranteed. As long as you have to make big mistakes not to get rich slowly if you follow that simple 10% a month rule or 10% a year rule. Okay, but if you're trying to get rich quick, it's very hard to do. First of all, almost anything you're going to do is probably going to be a mistake, and it's very hard. It's very easy to become poor quickly when you're trying to become rich quickly. But again, if you do what you love, Because then, whatever you're working at, if you enjoy it, you're going to do it often and you're going to have a good life. And then put that 10% away or 20%, whatever you're able to. If you don't have a lot of debt now, say this to students who might be having student loans, right? But try not to take on any extra debt than you need to, because that's only something you're going to have to get rid of later on. And but hopefully, what you'll understand when savings is involved, time. The more time we have, the better it is. So the younger we start, the better, the more time we have. And again, some of us that are in my age bracket, we don't have as much time, so we have to, work with it. Maybe another 10 years, but we'll get through it. Okay, so far so good. So what's one of the most important components of time? Sorry, of investing. Now, the time goes. What's getting the exponent on it is really the interest rate. So that also helps. Having a higher interest rate will help, but it's sort of this component that the time is what goes up there in the exponent, and we see that whatever goes up here is a bigger deal. Because we could have taken, watch this. We could have taken 4 times 3. We still get 12. We switch the order, but watch if we take 4 to the 3rd power. We still get a good number, that's 64, but not as much as if we took 3 to the 4th. So exponents are not commutative. Time is always the biggest factor. The cool thing is the more time you give, also the less risk you take. Even in the stock market, you can invest more aggressively. You can take on more risk and maybe lose some at time because you'll be able to recover over time. Stock market, if you've got a 20-year horizon window, it has averaged about 12% on every 12-year time period. The stock market averages about 12% every 12, if you look at a 20-year time window. Now, there's some places where it's dropped, yes, 20%. There's big drops in there, but if you're investing over the long haul, as long as you have a 20-year window, you could pretty much count on getting an averaged out rate of about 12. Maybe one year you lose 20, the next year you gain 40, but it'll average out. So you need to take on some risk to invest to get good returns, because sometimes if you take a guaranteed rate, we'll take a look at that. Those rates are so low, 1 or 2% for a guaranteed rate, that what you're doing is your money is actually losing value faster than you're getting interest. Because if inflation is above 2%, you're 2%, you're actually losing money rather than gaining. The dollar amount is up, the number's higher, but its spending power is actually going down. So you have to be willing to take on risk. Okay. Time is our exponent. The exponent can be our friend or not. It depends on what we're working at. So this is just showing the effect of different compounding periods. Okay, so I'll highlight here. Here's, if we basically do it once a year, we're getting 8%. 8% is 8%. If we compound quarterly, so 4 times a year, that's equivalent to getting an 8.24% return. So what it does is it makes it like we're getting a little bit better return on our money, even though it's crediting at 8% because we're getting interest on our interest. And the more times we do it, the better it gets, but then you'll see there's sort of a limit. See this 8.32. So if you do it 500 times a year, it's about the same as doing it, what's this? This is like 1 billion times a year. If you do it daily, you get about as close as you're going to get, right? Even monthly is pretty close to it. So as long as you're getting some compounding, though, the biggest jump is going from no compounding to four times a year, quarterly. Even semi-annual will jump you up, but a lot of things do have monthly compounding. So look for at least monthly. A lot of times that are daily compounding, there's actually credit card companies. They charge you interest on a daily basis. They're making sure they get their highest return. And we'll see. When you're borrowing, everything we learn today, we're going to switch it around. So what's good for us today, when we come back to loans, is sort of what's bad for us in loans. So investing, you want a lot of time, because that gives you the most time to gain. You'll see when you've got loans, you want to get that paid off as quickly as possible, because otherwise you're helping somebody else get rich at your expense, costing you money, giving more money to some other organization. Okay, so now we're into savings plans and investments. Let's see. So this is a similar calculation, but notice how the formula's gotten a little more funky. Really all we've added in is that we're going to make a regular payment because maybe we don't have money to start an investment, but we could put $100 a month away. Okay, so that's another way. You'll see in the calculator you could actually do both. You could start with a $5,000 balance and then put $100 a month or $200 a month. The calculator will handle all of that. I just want you to see the mathematics behind it. The payment gets multiplied by this interest rate factor. Again, what is the most powerful part of this equation? The exponent, the time. Time is still king. So the more time you have, the more you're going to be able to gain. And that was the richest man in Babylon, is just get rich slowly. If you can't put a lot away, that's okay, but put what you can, 10% of what you have. And I'll tell you what, if you're used to living off 100%, living off of 90% really isn't that much harder. I mean, some months, if you have a shortage, you live with it. So if you just get yourself ready to, put 10% away, again, that's what makes it all work, having the time, doing it for 10 to 20 years, 30 years. It works out good. Okay, so that's the main thing of this slide. And again, we're not going to use these formulas because I want you focusing on the results and just getting a good estimate. If I put this much in for this many years, how much is I going to get back? If I put more years, how much of a difference is that going to make? Because sometimes it's small differences. Okay, we were talking percentages last week, and I gave a formula for percent change. That's where this is going to come in. So the only thing that's sort of missing with this particular one is this is similar to our formula we came up with. Remember, I said the new minus the old, and we divide it by what? Old. That's what. So that was that formula, and then I multiply it by 100 to come up with a rate, interest rate, percent. Well, notice future value, that's in the future, or maybe it's the current value in the present value. So this is new, this is the old, and so it's really exactly the same thing. It's just the new value minus the old value divided by the old value multiplied by 100. And there's a few of these problems in the homework. There's really no specialized calculator, but this is really what we were doing back in Unit 4 or Lesson 4 with percentages. Okay. We're going to see that, I don't know, we teach total return, and they teach it in business school, but it's not a very, it's actually not a very helpful rate we're going to see. Clear this out. Okay, so we got an example. So we'll work through this example. So we invested in a property back in 2004. Initially, we put $27,500, and then down the road, we decide to sell it for a profit. So what's our total return? So how would we do that one? Which one's the new and which one's the old? Okay, so this is our new, because we just sold it. This is our old. Okay, and I could write it out, but what I'll do is I'll just hit enter, and they'll do it for us all in one fell swoop. Notice new minus the old divided by the old. They multiplied it by 100 to turn it to a percentage, so that's a 57.8%. Okay. What do you notice is missing from this calculation, though? What's that? Okay, yeah, down here they should have multiplied by 100. The result's still there, but what else is not even in the formula? Remember what I was talking about is one of the most important parts of investing as far as the mathematics. What's that? The exponent. What was the exponent? Years. And notice they give us the years, 2004 to 2013, which is what? That's 9 years. In this calculation down here, did we ever use 9 years? No. You could sort of take the 57.8 divided by 9 and kind of get an average annual return. That's what would be kind of more valuable. But that would be simple interest, and this we wanted to look at compound interest. So we're going to look at another calculation, which is actually annual return, annual yield, which is something we can compare. Because if we do it in 9 years, wouldn't this interest rate, or if we did it in 1 year, that the total return would be the same. But if I can get 57% return in 1 year versus 9, that's a lot better investment. So the thing is a total return percentage is rarely helpful unless we know how many years are involved. Okay? And a lot of times we don't. The total return doesn't include the component of time. So why do we teach it? Because they use it. But you're right. It's not as helpful. Okay. This is what becomes helpful. And notice it's sort of a little bit easier calculation. It's really just the new divided by the old, and then we raise it to a power. And notice this is where the value of time comes in, assuming basically annual compounding. So we divide by 1 divided by the years. So if it was 12 years, it'd be 1/12 of a year. And then we subtract off 1, which would be the 100% we started with. Okay. So this is a formula you may want to remember. There's also another way we can use the TVM solver to get annual return rates. But this is something we could compare because it's giving us the interest return on an annual basis. So if I know that APY, annual percentage yield, right, annual percentage yield, I can directly compare two investments. And the higher the interest, the better the investment. Of course, there may be risk involved. We'll talk about that as well. But this is the calculation that will be of most value to us. We have you do both the total return and the annual return. Again, the total return is a number, and you'll see it sometimes. But just remember, the total return doesn't include the value of time, so it's not as important. It's not as comparable. This is the thing you can compare, the annual returns. Okay. So just like the last one, they're going to give us an example. And I think they even use the same examples. So now we're going to use that formula to get the annual return. Remember, it was like 57% return when I did total return. But watch what happens when we use the other formula for annual percentage. We divide by 1/9. We include the value of time. Are you as excited about a 5% return as a 57% return? It's not as exciting. It's not a bad return, but it's not that great. Well, for real estate, it's actually not bad. If you can get about a 4% return on real estate over time, that's actually about what real estate averages. So if you get above 4%, you're doing okay. But it's not as exciting as 57%, but it's more accurate. All right? Okay. Questions? So you're almost ready. I'm not sure if it's. I just want to set up the story right because I got a picture. They kept in touch with me. These two students, they were in the same semester. They got jobs. They followed. Well, you'll see. One of them followed my advice, put the 10% away. The other, well, they played around a bit. But we're going to compare their stories. And it was really nice that they contacted me and kept in touch all these years. So I think they're coming up. But let me click the slide and see if they're next. I think they are. These are my students. Two of my favorite students I've ever worked with. No, Okay, so it's coming up. So this is kind of like the lead up to it. So the types of investments. So if you're going to invest money, yes, you can take it down to the bank and just get an interest rate. But oftentimes banks pay very low interest rate, maybe less than 1% sometimes. So if you really want to make some money, you have to invest in things. One way of investing is called a stock, where you actually are buying part of the company. So what a company does is they go, they register as a security. They divide the company up into the shares. So they might, whatever the value of the company is, say it's $10,000. They maybe have 10,000 shares, so each share would be worth $1 at the start. People buy it, but as the company does better, that portion that you own could go up in value. That's what the hope is. If the company makes a profit, what they do is they pay a dividend. So some companies do that. I haven't looked recently, but like Apple stock has done very well. One share of something like Apple might cost thousands of dollars. And you're holding it to hopefully be able to sell it in the future at a profit, or to be able to receive dividends as they make money. But you're actually an owner in the business. A downside of being an owner in a business, what happens when they go bankrupt, or if they go bankrupt, let's say. What happens to your ownership in that company? You went bankrupt too. Or at least that investment went bankrupt. Sometimes you get money back because they could sell some of the assets, and occasionally you get money back. But you're, as an owner, you're last in the list to get any money. The debtors get their money first. So with that in mind, people have another type of investment, which is called a bond. In a bond, you don't own the company. You are loaning money to a company. So when you buy a bond, you're becoming a lender. Okay? That company owes you money. If they go bankrupt, they still owe you that money. So when the assets get sold, bondholders get paid way before stockholders. Okay? So bonds typically have less risk, but they also have a lower return. If the company does extraordinarily well, it doesn't usually affect the debt, although it may make it easier to sell. Okay, so bond is considered a more conservative investment and a safer investment, but and one of the things to do with investing is to have a mix of stocks and bonds, and they have these things called mutual funds, which are, you give it to a fund manager, and that fund manager takes your $100 and he buys a little bit, spreads it out, and your $100 and a lot of other people's $100, and they buy various investments. They buy stocks, they buy bonds, they buy cash, and that's their job to professionally manage it. It's the kind of investing I do because I don't want to keep day to day on looking what a company's doing. I look for a good fund, and that's where I put my money. It's a little safer. A mutual fund company I don't believe they've ever gone bankrupt, because if one of the companies of the stocks in there goes bankrupt, the others, you've got that security. Okay, so, and then of course you've got cash. There's like U.S. Treasury bills. These are very short-term investments. They're very liquid. They're very secure, but they also give you a very low return. I think we're ready to meet my students now. So these are, they actually were twins. Ever had twins? This is one of my twins. One more. I just don't want to miss it. So I know after this. So when you invest, like they have to, liquidity is how fast you can get your money out. Again, if it's retirement investment, that's okay. We're thinking maybe 20 years, 30 years down the road. But if you want an emergency fund, you want it so you could get it when you need it. So be careful how you invest. Some investments, you're actually locking your money away for a period of time. And if you take your money out early, you will oftentimes pay a penalty. Sometimes you can't. You have to sell it. If you buy a condo for an investment, you won't get your money back until you sell it. And that could take time. House, properties. There's some good investments, jewelry, but you have to sell it before you can get it out. So there's risk involved. Again, the risk is you put your money in and it might not come back, or the value might go down, but you have to be willing to take risk to get a return. And that's the last one, is the return. That's the interest rate. And as we saw, the interest rate is where the exponent sits on. So the higher interest rate you get, the more return you will get. But again, usually the equation is to get a higher return, you have to take a higher risk. And you get lower liquidity. Okay. Now you're ready to meet my students. Okay. Well, we'll skip this one. Stock market goes up and down. Now is the time for my students. There they are, my two twins, Tweedledee and Tweedledum. So now you say, okay, it's probably not a real story, but it got you staying here, right? Because you were excited to learn about these two students of mine who once sat in the class of MAT141, and then after graduation, they got their first job, and at the same company. In fact, they actually worked at the same desk, two separate sides of the desks, okay? And this is what Tweedledee and Tweedledum did. Tweedledee, I could never tell the difference between the two either. So, but anyway, I'm not sure who's D and who's dumb. But Tweedledee, you saw he listened to me. He's making $40,000 annual salary. Let's see, where's my? Here we go. Making an annual salary of $40,000 at the ripe young age of 25. And what does he do first of all with that $40,000? How much is he putting into his annual savings? 10%, right? 10% of 40,000 is 4,000. He's doing it. So then he's getting compound interest, and that's what's calculated here. It's been a while since I did the spreadsheet. I think I got it at about 8% interest. Maybe it's 6. You could probably figure it out from the numbers. I've lost the spreadsheet, so I don't even know what it is. But whatever interest rate is, notice his 4,000. Even at the end of the year, he's got more than he put in. He's got interest returning. What do you think about Tweedledum? Well, he said, Little Crow, I don't think it's that important to start saving. I could probably do it later in life, right? I'm 25. It's time to live it up. And that's the kind of person he was, or she. I'm not sure if they were he or she, but that's why I like them. They were just good people. Okay? So, Tweedledum doesn't put anything away, and he's got the attitude, or she's got the attitude, I'll get to it someday. And so quickly, 10 years passes by. What's happened to Tweedledee? Every year they've been putting, he or she has been putting her money away, and at the end of 10 years, age of 34, what do they have in their retirement account? $66,000. Tweedledum, nothing. Okay. Well, they came up with this interesting little game. Tweedledum says, okay, I guess it's really time to get started. And it goes, says to Tweedledee, how about if you stop investing and I start investing, and I bet you in 10 years I can catch up to you. Do you think that's going to work? Well, they weren't sure, so they gave it a try. Okay, so let me click on here. Remember, you've got this spreadsheet too. They gave it a try. Tweedledee just stopped investing. Notice not putting anything away. Didn't take out his investment, so the investment's still gaining interest. Tweedledum's starting to put away, and notice because their salaries have gone up, and I think I did like 3% a year because they're good workers. They got regular increases in their salary. Having to put actually more away in this 10 years, but look at the end of 10 years, even though Tweedledee didn't put anything away for this 10 years, almost double. Almost double. And not basically working early for the first 10 years, putting away, is a lot better than putting away for the second 10 years. Of course, wherever you can start is the time to start. So Tweedledum says, okay, that didn't work, but I'll bet you if I do it for another 10 years, so I put away for 20 years, you only put away for 10 years, I'm going to catch you after the next 10. What do you think? Okay, no? Okay. You guys are so smart. Can't fool you anymore. Used to be able to fool some people, but you're all getting more savvy. And you're right, another 21 to 30 years. Look at look at the amount of money that they're having to put, that Tweedledum has to put away because the salaries are getting high to make it 10%. And look at after putting away for 20 years, not caught up, but still about 60,000 short, 50,000-ish, somewhere there, about 50 and a half, 55,000 short of Tweedledee, who put away just for the first 2 years, 10 years, and then took a break. So put away early, and then you can take your break. Okay, let's go all the way to retirement with this one. Let's see what happens at retirement age, which is 67 for most of, and actually it might be a little bit later for you guys. It's 67 for me, is full retirement with Social Security. I think they're trying to bump it towards 70. I'm not. Has any of you looked at what your full retirement age is? Probably too early for you, but you want to. And who knows? If Social Security will still be around. But anyway, even after putting away, so it's been 43 years of work. They're both 67 years old, so you can see this is kind of projecting into the future. They finally, yes, after all of this time, Tweedledum did finally catch up. But put him away for 33 years. It took him that long to catch up to Tweedledee, who only put away for 10 years. So I've got a summary page here. And the summary page shows Tweedledee put in a total of 42,000 to get back 841,000. Sorry. Tweedledum had to put almost $200,000 of their own hard-earned money to get about the same thing. Get 10,000 more. Which one would you rather be? Unfortunately, I also was probably more like Tweedledum. I thought I knew what I was doing. I'll catch up later, right? So, but, you know, it's fine. What do you think would have happened, though? Because do you think Tweedledee would have really stopped saving? No, because you're used to it. You didn't miss the money once because you tell your employer put 10% away. They take it before you even see the paycheck. You don't even miss it. So they would have stopped. They would have continued. What do you think the story would have looked like had Tweedledee continued? Well, I won't give you the blow-by-blow, but I will give you the summary. Clear off the screen here. Had Tweedledee continued saving, again, mirror image, that first 10 years of savings resulted in what? Where are we? 1.6, almost 1.7 million. Look at double. And they put in almost the same amount. He basically put in an extra 42,000, gets him an extra 841,000. So those first 10 years, that first 40,000, the time is so valuable. And that's the main lesson I want you to get today. We'll do a few example problems just to get you started. But I have had students that, and she came back like a couple weeks later and said, you know, it was weird that the day you gave that presentation on this, she says the day after that, at her employer, they were doing their 401k plans. She signed up for the 15%. She says, I better do this. She says, had I not seen that, I probably would have just said, I'll get to it later. She says, but I signed up that day. I says, can you take it out next week? You know, got her thinking, if you just start. And again, payroll deduction is a great way because you really don't miss it. And usually it's also before tax. So if you're putting 100 away, you're only going to miss maybe $70 because some of that is your taxes actually go down as well. So, you know, the government's helping you. You know, when does the government help us? Not a lot, but investing they will. You buy a house, again, you get to deduct that. So there are some areas where we get some advantages, and so we want to take advantage of those. Investing is one of them. Is if you do a pre-tax contribution from your employer, it goes away. You don't pay the tax. Now, it's not that you won't ever pay taxes. When you take it out, you'll have to pay taxes. So you're still going to support the society, but you're able to invest with money that the government would have been taking. So they're kind of helping you build that. That's really powerful, isn't it? Just starting 10 years earlier. I mean, and even if you just look 1 or 2 years, it's just get that start. So even if you just could put a couple, throw your chain, some people, it's just as easy as got change in your pocket, throw it in a bowl. The bowl gets full, go take it down to the bank, put it in there, invest it. Whatever you need to do, start some kind of savings. It's just critical. In fact, I want to go down today, maybe get my plan started. We've got our regulars that come, I think they take about 11% out of ours, but it is important to keep that going. Okay? And I think if I click one more time, let's see, I think we're almost done, or pretty much done. Yeah, then we get the loan payments. That's going to be after we get back from spring break. So that's the presentation for today. And so what we can do is we can take a look at a few of the, oh, here it is, simple interest calculator. So let me open that up. I don't think it opens in a window, so I'm just going to see if I can drag it out, get it out of this thing. There we go. So it'll be over here. Make it smaller. So we'll maybe use these two. Oops. And okay, this can go here. Make sure they can see it on the video. So we'll pull up a few reading quiz. Again, these practice problems, these are the videos that I worked through. And again, they will be good to take a look at. And then we'll take a look at the reading quiz, and then I'll show you how these little calculators sort of work. So we just have 8 questions. We go through them, get you a good start. Today I do have a meeting at 12. I think they'll be next door, so I'll make them go next door this time. So you guys can stay here. It's not a department meeting, it's a separate meeting. So if you want to stay and work, you're welcome to, and then I'll just be next door for a little bit. Okay, so this is how this works. So we have Javier invest $6,000 at 4%. And is this important that it's simple interest? Yes, because that tells us which calculator to use. Okay, so it's simple interest for 31 years. So how much interest is earned over the 31-year period? So we could just calculate just the interest. It's 6,000 times 0.04 times 31, and we'd get it. Or we could just come over to the simple interest calculator. Let's see if I can make this a little bit bigger. They're going to ask us up here what to solve for. This is the total, so that's the return you get. We could also calculate the principal or the rate or the time period. So for this one, we'll just do the total. Okay, so our principal, what's our principal?
6,000.
So we put in 6,000. What's our interest rate? 4%. So in this one, we just put 4%. Oops. There we go. Just put 4%. And then we put how many years? 31. Now the thing is, and these are years, we're going to calculate. Let's see what it shows us. Does the calculation. It tells us we've got 13,444, but that's our total amount we have back But it's nice down here. It shows us the interest. It does the interest calculation. Actually, it subtracts off the 6,000 we put in. So it also tells us that 7,440 of it was interest. Okay, so these things are going to do all the math for you, all the calculations. But I want you to understand as you look at it and just sit back and say, yeah, it told me what it did, so that you know if you didn't have access to these that you could actually do it. Okay. The other thing that's kind of cool is if you're lazy like me, you can just copy. And actually, it's not the laziness. Oh, that's the total amount. How much is in the account at the end of the 31 years? So that's the larger amount, which is copy and paste. Now, I don't know if the comma will cause problems or not. We'll see. Okay, and then I could come down here and copy the interest one. So that's what I like about these calculators is you really can. You don't have to worry about transposing the numbers or something. You can just type them if you'd like to, but let's see if this works. Paste. Copy and paste. There's a little video here if you wanted to watch it, but we don't need to really. We've got a calculator that does it all. You can also use the formulas, and yeah, it even liked it with the commas there. It was just fine. How's that? Simple interest calculator. Does all the calculations for you. Okay. There's some in there that will say, I want to save this much. How much do I need to deposit? And if you're doing simple interest, all you have to do is at the top here, ask it to solve for that principal. If you do that, notice the calculator has changed. It's asking what's the total amount you need, what's the rate, and how many years. It will calculate what you need to deposit. There's a couple questions like that. I'm not sure if they're in the reading quiz or not, but I just want to show you this calculator will do everything. Okay, but you may need to change over. Sometimes they'll say, I've got this much to deposit, I need to get this much, which kind of a rate do I need? And then what you do is you just change what you're solving for, you solve for the rate. And they might ask you, I've got all this other information, how much time do I need? You could also solve for the time period. Okay, so that's how that one works. Let's go to number 2. Let me let you know that this table, I get a lot of I get questions about it. This one we have to kind of do manually, but it's also in the textbook. There's an example very similar to this. So what it's actually asking us to do sort of year by year. So it tells us we got a starting balance. We're going to earn 5% simple interest. So if you take 5,500 times 0.05, so the calculation is 5,500 times 0.05. You'll see you'll get the interest, which is $275. You then take 5,500 plus the interest to get the ending balance. So notice 5,500 plus 275 gives you 5,775. You start the next starting balance comes from the ending balance, so you copy that over there, do the calculation again. So we take this number times 0.05, and for that one I'm going to need a regular calculator. Sometimes we just need a regular calculator to do our business. So we go 5,775 times 0.05, 5%, $288.75. And then we're going to want to take 5,775 plus the interest to get the ending balance. So take my interest plus 5,775 equals $6,063.75. So I put that here. What do I put here? The ending balance. So I just move it over. So this one's just a copy. Some people think, what do I do this? There is no calculation. Just copy it over. 6063.75. Now I do the calculation again. Okay, so it's kind of tedious and boring, but let me just keep going through. These numbers that are here are checks, because if you don't end up with this number, there was an error before that you're going to need to fix. So let's see if we get the same number. So I take this number, 6,063.75, which is already in my calculator. I'm going to get the interest, so I'm going to multiply by 0.05, and I get $303.19, so we will round to 2 decimal places. Oh, wait. I forgot something. Did anyone see this 275 down here? I forgot. This is actually, I'm compounding the interest, because I'm paying interest on the interest. And what did I say simple interest really is? When you get the interest, you take it and spend it. So I apologize here. I should have looked down here. Notice the interest is always $275. This balance is sort of growing, but you're not getting interest on the interest. That's why it's not really a very realistic case. If you left it on deposit, you would be getting interest on it. Okay, but this is that now I see why this is a confusing question, because I just messed up on it. So what we want to do with this, with simple interest, is the interest will always be $275. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go down and put $275 in all of these. So it's really not even a calculation to do. There, it's over here. We just keep adding it on. So 5,775 plus 275. Oops. 6050. I don't like these ones. 275 plus 6050. Yeah, that's, we'll just do the check. Plus 275. 6325, and then again that's copied there. 275, add it, put it there. 275, and then you'll get your final. You'll be good. So that's the simple interest one. Throws everybody off, including the teacher. So makes sense. And now it does. But it's just, I'd never seen one like this done with simple interest. Because again, simple interest really, the reason you don't get interest on your interest is you took it and you went and spent it. So it really doesn't make sense unless you want to see how much over time you got. But I don't like this. But that's okay. We don't always have to like everything, do we? I didn't used to like broccoli, but now I love it. You just have to learn the right way to cook it. Right? Just don't overcook it. That's the thing. Have it nice and crisp. Okay, here's another one, but this is a compound interest one. So this one is what I was kind of looking at. You're going to get interest on your interest. Now notice 12%, what they're doing is that they're doing it monthly, so that's why they're only multiplying by 1%. Because it's 1% per month, which is 12% over a year. Okay. So you take your starting balance, 10 or 1%, move the decimal over 2 places, gives you $27. Notice you take your starting balance plus your interest, you have an ending balance, you move that over, and now this is the one where you're going to actually take, your balance here, you're going to multiply it by 0.01, which is 1%. You're going to get your monthly interest, which you'll see is going to be, so when you multiply, and they chose some nice easy numbers to work with. 1%, you're really just moving decimal places, so you're going to get $27.27 in interest. Okay, that's 1%. Do the multiplication if you'd like. Now we add them on together. Probably better. It's got too many 27s in there. I'm going to mess up. So 27 plus the interest of $27.27. 27.54.27. So we put that in here. And then we copy that just down into here because that's the new starting balance. Calculate the interest again at 1%. And again, 1%, we just move the decimal over 2 places, so it's going to be $27.54 of interest. And again, you could use the calculator. And then when we add these together, we're supposed to come up with 27.278181. So let's see if we do. We take that number plus 27.54. See, and we match. So far so good. And we just keep going. And so there's kind of a couple checkpoints there, but that's compound interest. Okay, month by month, blow by blow. Really tedious and boring, but we don't have you do it too often, but you find out how this works. Okay, a few little hand calculations, and then we're going to get to this one. Let's see, does this one get us into using? Yes. So this one, we're now going to introduce for the first time this TVM solver. Okay, and I can't. Can you guys see that? Okay, kind of. It's okay. I guess they can. Hopefully on the video you can too, but they can't tell me if they can't or not. So we'll figure that out later. So let's clear this out and let's see what we do. So if $1,000 is invested in an account for 10 years, find the value of the investment at the end of 10 years if the interest is compounded annually, compounded semi-annually, compounded quarterly, so forth and so on. So this is where we'll start using this TVM solver. So what is our deposit? 1,000, right? So that's our present value. We put that in there. We're going to be in the account for 10 years. Now this is where it'll change. The number of periods, what I have to do is I have to select here how often it compounds. And the first one is going to go annually, so I choose annually. How many, if I'm doing annually for 10 years, how many periods do I have? 10 times 1 is 10. 10 years is 10 years. We're going to see that this number will actually change. When I do semi-annually, that will actually be 20 periods, 10 times 2. Quarterly will be 4 times 10. Monthly will be 12 times 10. So that's where that comes in, the number of periods. What's our rate? 5.2. And on these calculators, you just put in the 5.2. You don't have to turn it to a decimal. So that's most of the calculators. Some of the calculators you used to need to be able to do that. Do they talk about a payment? They don't. So what we do is we put in 0 for the payment. So we could also have an additional payment, but we don't. We need to find out the future value. So what do you think we do? Click on the button that says FV. And it will put it right in there. Now, what does it say? I don't know. Let's see. Maybe I can make this a little bigger. Let's see if I can make that. Oh, good. I can make it bigger. It says 1,660 and 19 cents. Now it's negative. Does anyone know what that means? No. Doesn't mean we lost money. Here's the thing with time, with investments. Money has not only a time value, it also has a direction. Money will go away from us and it will come back to us. So let's think of this through. I didn't do this first, but if we were investing money, which direction does the money go from us? It goes, we give it to somebody to go use it and gains, we buy a company, but the money actually went away from us. So a more appropriate way would have been to say the present value was negative. And then watch what happens when I recalculate the future value. The future value is the same amount, but it's now positive. So you could kind of almost ignore the negatives most cases, but there's a few places where you really have to put it in as far as a payment. So just think, anything that goes away from you is negative. Anything that comes back to you will be positive. And if you kind of think through that way, you'll be fine. When you put the answers into MAT141, they're all going to be positive because they're all cash, right? But the negative will tell us whether it's coming to us or going away. It's kind of a quick thing. And then you go through compounded semi-annually. The only thing you need to change is that the number of periods is now going to be 20. And you're going to change the compounding to semi-annual. You have to do both. Otherwise, it's 20 years, and that's not really the same thing. And then we just click on the future value, and you notice it went up a little bit because we're compounding more often. It's now 1,670. We got an extra $10. $10.70. 1670.89, I think it was. So I want to be careful that they can still see it here. And we just keep going. Then quarterly, you'll change the periods 4 times 10. So that'll be 40 here. And then change it to quarterly. Future value. Boom. It went up. We got another $6. So the more you compound, the better it is. And then we've even got daily. Again, so you just go through and do each of these. Daily interest. And how many periods would we have? 10 years times 365, 3,650. Yeah. And again, you'll see it'll make a slight difference, actually, but it's kind of a limit. It's still only 1,681. It didn't make a huge difference. Okay. So we went from it was about a $20 difference over 10 years by compounding. But more compounding is better. So if I can get daily, I'll take it. But I'm not too worried. Monthly was good. Semi-annually was good. So, again, go ahead and do all of those, and you can check your answers. And most of your problems are that way. Sometimes they'll have a goal. You'll know, I want to save $5,000. What do I have to deposit? So, again, that's the same thing. You just fill in what you know, but this time you'd be calculating on your present value. What do I need to deposit so that I could have that $5,000 in the future? So that's what's great about this. You just put in what you know. The thing that you're looking for, that's the button you're going to push. Make sense? Okay. And you'll just see it. It is harder than it seems. Once you start getting through these, it just takes some time, but you'll get it and you'll pick it up quick. And you know what? When we get to doing loans, we use exactly the same calculator. It's just that the question for a loan is that we're going to be standing on the other side of the desk, right? Right now, we are the investor giving somebody, really what we're doing is we're loaning our money to somebody else. And they're paying us for the use of that money. That's what savings is. When we're borrowing money, what are we doing? We're just on the other side of the desk. We're taking money from an investor who's letting us use their money, and then we pay them back the interest. So the mathematics is really all the same. It's just the direction of flow of the money and the interest. So does the interest come out of our pocket or does it go into our pocket? So so again, that's why it's always everything we learn in this unit is going to be almost the opposite of what we learn in the loans unit. What applies to savings is the opposite of what applies to loans. So yeah, savings, you want a lot of time, you want high interest, you want to put as much as you can away. Loans, you want to borrow as little as you can at the lowest interest, and you want to get it paid off as fast as you can. You'll see that. Okay. That's really what we want you to walk away from. And being able to use a TVM solver. There's also something at the, if you've got a smartphone or a tablet, you can download apps that are financial calculators. And what I do is I just do a search on financial calculators. One of the first ones that comes up is called Financial Calculator. And it's really good. It does all sorts of different things, as well as conversions and stuff. But it's got a great TVM solver. And that's nice having it on your phone because you just plug it in. You get used to using it. It's very similar to this, but it's actually a little bit easier because it'll take up your full phone screen. And so if you're using a computer and that, then it's sometimes a little easier. You're welcome to use that. Okay? Or there's this one I just put a link right there, so you've got access to this. The TI-84 calculator. It's got a built-in app as well that does financial calculating. It's got all these spots. It's a little bit different because instead of choosing annual or monthly, there's a different way. You actually put in the number of compounding periods. So if it's monthly, you have to put in 12. If it's quarterly, you put in 4. But I'd be happy to show that to you as well. The book has some instruction on how to use the TVM solver as well. I believe so. I saw it one time, so I'm assuming they're still there. I won't go through the rest because I think I just wanted to introduce you to these two calculators. Let me go back to the reading itself, and let's just see. I think it's in here somewhere. Let's see. Yeah, they give you all of these things. And you'll see some of the stuff I got in the PowerPoint came out of here. There's some examples. But they use the formulas, and again, I prefer that you get used to using the apps because that's how it's done in the real world. You go to the high-powered investors, they don't bust out formulas, they bust out apps because those will do it correctly. There's too many places you can make a mathematical error. One of our faculty used to be, who's retired now, he was also an engineer, and that's what he would say. He says, the engineers don't trust your page of notes, your hand-done calculations. They want to see it done by a computer. So, if you come into an engineer's meeting with your hand notes, they'll laugh you out of the office. And it's a math, he's a math teacher, so he knew on that. Financial people will do the same. They want to see that it's been run through a financial calculator. Maybe it isn't. Maybe it isn't. But there's some videos that will help you solve them. And what I do, I think the videos that I've made, let me see. Let's take a quick look at one of them. I think I used the template from the TI calculator. Look at one of my practice problems. Oops. No, that's not it. Oh, practice problem videos. That's where I want to go. Let's see. It's first year one. So yeah, that looks like when you see this, go to YouTube. Yeah, this is what the TI calculator looks like.
We're going to look at
it has the CY,
interest,
so you'll see
and
what
how
that
that
is. But
affects savings.
I'm just basically going to fill it in on the
What we will
screen.
be using is
And
this
that's
grid,
magically calculated, put
which
the answer.
represents
But
a
that's what I do. Is
financial
I take you
calculator,
through
a TVM
a few
solver,
of those practice problems, and I just show you where every one of those things go. That's really what these problems
which stands for
are going to
time
work you
value
through.
of money. So you're looking at using one
And
of the
again, this was my
TVM
first
calculators,
way
one
of
that I
getting
linked
doing
to online.
problems
You can use
back
an
in.
app that you can download from one of the app
While we're
stores.
here, though, I want to
on a smartphone
emphasize.
or
I
tablet.
really want you, if you want to sign
Or
up,
you can use a
as
TI
a
83 or
subscribe, you
84,
can get the
which
extra
has a
credit.
built-in
How much?
financial
I gave extra
app,
credit to you
the
already, right?
TVM
Was it
solver.
10 points or
It's very
not a big
similar
deal, but
what you end up putting
it's
in.
1%, right?
And we'll just see
So
how
you
these
got 1,000
questions that we're
points
going
of
to deal
something.
with, basically,
So
we
if you'll
just
do
need
it
to
by
pick
the end
out
of
the
spring break,
information that we
you'll get
have.
the 10 points extra
We'll
credit
have
by
enough information to
subscribing,
fill
and
in
what it does is it
all
allows
of
you
these blanks
a little
except
bit
for
easier
one,
access to it.
and that's the
I
one
was
we will
watching one
click
student in
on,
my other class
which
do
will
it. So if
cause
it's
the
red,
calculator to solve
this little
for that
subscribe
particular
button,
item.
just click on
And
it.
then in some cases we
Now
will
it'll
be
ask
done.
you to sign in.
In other
You can
cases,
sign
we'll
in
see down the
with
road
your
that
MEID. I've got all these things, but let me do. do a new account. Let's see. Let me try another account. See what it does when you go in with your MEID. And this one has remembered my password. So if not, you just put it in. Oh, maybe it didn't. Oh, because it's at Gmail. Anyway, actually, it was supposed to take us. It takes you to the MEID sign-in. So what I have to do is it's that. Let's try this. You would put at Maricopa for your student account. I think mine is at scottsdalecc.edu. I think both ways should do it. And then it takes us to the sign-in screen because every time you sign into one of the apps that are tied to your school account, it takes you through this thing. But again, what you do, go ahead and just sign in. And then it takes you back to YouTube, and then what you'll see
In this series of questions, we're
is
going
now the
to
subscribe
look
button
at
is gray,
compound
which means you've
interest
been
and how that
subscribed.
affects
On my
savings.
channel, I'll see your
What we will be
MEID.
using is this
I might
grid,
not match up your name
which
with your
represents
MEID,
a
but if you'll
financial
send me an email
calculator,
just that I went ahead and signed
TDM
up,
solver.
then I will get the point. I've been doing pretty good at getting a few emails and doing that.
Which stands for time value of money.
This is actually
So
under
you're
Open
using
Global
one of the
Village.
TDM
It's a
calculators,
nonprofit I set
the
up.
one that I linked to online.
Is the
You can
so
use
that's
an
the other way.
app
So
that
you
you can
can see
download from one of
Open
the
Global
app
Village
stores
is the channel name.
on a smartphone or tablet.
That's the other way. Is you could just go
Or
into
you can use a
YouTube.
TI-83 or
and subscribe
84,
with Open
which
Global
has a
Village.
built-in financial app, the TDM
And
solver.
actually, because I like you guys, I'll let you do it. If you've got more than one, like you got a private Gmail, you could also subscribe again with a private Gmail. I don't know. I'll give you extra credit for every time you sign.
That was an easy way to do it, by the way. I
Yeah?
just went in and came up, button
Yeah.
right next to it, and I just hit it.
Just hit it.
Just like
And
that.
if you're already logged in, it goes ahead and does it. But here's the other bonus you get. Anyone like Thai food? You learn how to cook Thai food. My wife's been doing some Thai cooking at home, so she's got about 3 or 4 videos in there. 3 videos now. They've also got some meditation videos. She's doing. Actually, she was just accepted. She's working on a graduate degree in mindfulness and education. So I listen to these sometimes, especially if it's a 20-minute meditation that's really good because she'll guide you through, leave you for a little while, and then my mind starts wandering. She comes back and reminds you to watch your breath. It's a really good one because it's. I've had other ones that guide you all the way through, but this one's and she's also got a 5-minute one that will guide you for 5 minutes and just kind of tells you to relax and all the things that watch your breath. That's all that's going on. But the 20-minute one I like because it gives me a chance to be on my own and then try to keep my mind from wandering. And when it does, though, she comes back on after so often. It's just like just when I start to wander, she comes back in. It's like almost she knows it. But I've listened to it several times. That's a really good one. And if you want to learn Thai, she's got a few Thai videos in there too. So we've got our Education Abroad program as well. So those are there. And if you go down a little bit more, these are where I keep all the classes. So I've got playlists for all my classes in order that I've been doing it. So if you ever got lost, you could just come in here. These are all the videos I make all semester long. Just click on that. We've got 10 of them so far, and they're in the order that they've been done. Now, today's is not in there yet. I have to rename it. As soon as I rename it to MAT141, today's video will get added to the playlist. So these are the old ones. It's going to be weird. You're watching a video of a video, but it works. Okay. And then let me just go back to the channel. If you go down even further, there's all the playlists for all the particular chapters. So if you just want to jump into one of the chapters, they're there. And again, we'll kind of keep on working it, but I want to get more coursework in there, more videos, and just better videos because I've now got this thing that I'm using, and I think it works a little bit better. But again, as you watch these things, if you see something that you like, if you have any feedback, please feel free to share it. just like to make a lot of things available. And I came up with a new idea yesterday of I like quotes from philosophers and stuff, so I might even add like a quote of the week type thing, discussing a quote, just stuff for fun. So those are the kind of things that'll be on the channel. You might not want to get, if you're starting to get too many notifications, because if you sign up for notifications, you might get notifications every time I have a class, because I'm live streaming all my classes. You could turn the notification part off, but stay subscribed so that you can, it's usually just a little bit easier to get into the channel that way. Okay. Awesome. So we still got 10 minutes, so we don't have to hurry too much, but that's pretty much it for today. Work through the homework, and again, as you're doing your work for lesson 5, I've only got a little bit to talk about when we get to lesson 6, about how loans are a little bit different. We'll look at those, and then we do some things called annuities, which are payments in or payments out. So we'll do both of those, but the next one we will spend more time working problems, because it gets a little dicier. There's a few little tricks in there, and we'll show you those for next class. But this will get you started into the TVM solver, time value of money. Money has a time value. The more time you have it invested, generally the more you're going to have come back. And as you'll see next lesson, the longer you keep a loan out, the more you'll give somebody else a good investment. All right. Any questions? Oh, word for the day. Thank you. I always forget, don't I? Almost always. It's like I don't want to do the word. Or maybe I just always want it at the end. Let's put it that way, right? Okay, so let's what should we do for our word of the day? Thai food, okay. So subscribe and get some and she lays it out. One of my other students has already started watching. In fact, I forgot she did one, and then she says, because she puts it out, she tells you all the ingredients, puts them out in dishes, so that once she starts cooking, it's just psh, psh, psh. And she says, that's so cool. And when I first met her, that was, I saw my mom cook. I cooked for myself a lot, but it was always a chore, because I would prepare each thing I was going to do as I needed it, right? If I needed chopped meat, I'd chop it and then I'd throw it in, and then while it's cooking, I'd be rounding up ingredients. But when she cooks, she has it all ready. So she'll spend sometimes half an hour getting things ready, but then when she cooks, 2 minutes, it's done, or 3, whatever it takes, and it's just all together, and then it's hot, ready to eat, and you're ready to eat it. So so a lot of what she does, it's the organizing of how she does it, and she does make it look easy, but it works. Because there's a few things that I can actually make. Because when she goes back home or something, I'm on my own. I can make some pad thai now. I can make some fried rice, and it turns out pretty good, because I follow her thing. I get the things ready and just go with it. So, yeah, we'll do our word of the day is going to be Thai food. Yeah, now unfortunately, I have some fried rice waiting for me. So, Thai food. So enjoy. Have a great spring break. We'll come back. And a week after spring break, or at least at the end of that week, we'll look at loans, and that will tie together our financial math. And again, the whole goal of this is that we have something usable in our lives. We're able to understand it. And this finances is something that really does affect all of us. I have met few people who have had too much money. Even the ones who have a lot of money have never complained about having too much money. But I've met a lot of people, and I've been in situations where I felt, I could use a little bit more. And sometimes, especially college student days, some of those weeks, the top ramen just didn't fill the stomach enough. But that was all there was until the next semester check or something. So anyway, excellent. Have a great week, and if you'd like to stay and work on things, that'd be fine. I'm going to get us out of the streaming, so thank you folks who have been watching. And remember, subscribe and get some extra credit, and enjoy the Thai food.